we are pretty open. We usually meet a lot sooner. It's my fault, but we got this. Like, we both know we can talk about anything related to this. We can even talk more about personality disorders and stuff related to this because actually, let me start with that because I just looked over and I remembered I left out notes. So, the last time we talked, you guys, we were talking about antisocial personality disorder, and we actually went over the DSM 5 criteria, right? So, in doing that, he fit way more than the amount of symptoms that he needed for that. But then on narcissistic personality disorder, Dr. Schultz and I, we both like have like a little bit of a different view. We don't butt heads on this. Like we both, he probably does have this, but I am more convinced of his narcissistic part more so, let's say, than Dr. Schultz at this part. So one of the things I thought of as soon as we hung up last night was, I would say when it comes to this, the reason I'm thinking this too, or the reason I think I'm willing to hypothesize that he has narcissistic traits is because I find, and tell me because you study serial killers too, but don't you find that people with antisocial personality disorder, most people with antisocial, that they're likely to have narcissistic traits, but not all narcissists are antisocial? Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of overlap, and that's why it becomes easy to
I think so
say
too.
that in a sense, because I find that the antisocial individual may not be narcissistic, but it may appear narcissistic because they know how to work their crowd for their own
They know how
purposes
to work their crowd.
due to the lack of empathy and stuff. But even when I was reading up on Bryan too, and it was saying he was having like episodes of, grandiosity and stuff like that, which I would like to know more about what he means by that, because for so much of his
Oh, I
descriptions
forgot about that.
online, yeah, but for so much of his descriptions online, what he's saying doesn't match that, except that phrase itself. So I feel like I don't know if once he kind of got past that part, the grandiosity now looks different as an adult rather than when he was a teenager, which is totally possible. And he was like, you know what? You can't beat them, join them, and really gave into those behaviors. Or again, if he's using it to his advantage to really get ahead and get a leg up on his victims, I guess. I'm not
So
sure.
yeah, no, and I like that. I like that you're not sure yet. I think that it's probably safer to and smarter to be a little like less convinced that I am about this because again, oh wait, hi. Also, oh, you have a student here. So Brenna, here, I'll put it up on the thing.
Yeah, I see
Look at
them.
that. So, oh, you can see the chat. Gotcha. Okay, good. So, okay, so this is the thing. I totally forgot about the fact that he said he was having delusions of grandeur. Grandeur is grande, meaning great, right? So, a delusion of grandeur, just for the other people out there, would be a narcissistic trait. But like Dr. Schultz is saying, I know what she means by he's very young during this time. And I do remember as I was reading his Tappa Talks and stuff, thinking like, wow, for a 14-year-old, like his like I was like, where is he getting like some of the wording he was using? Like it just sounded very educated for his age range. So part of me was like, was that him trying to appear smarter? I don't know. But that's where he uses the delusion, the grandiosity. So like you were saying before, how much of what he's saying is actually meaning up to what he's doing. And I think for people out there in your own life, because I always want to make sure we tie this back to how this can relate to you in your own life. I think it's important because some of us in our adult lives, I think, don't even, they're not matching up the right emotion with what they're really feeling. And that could be happening here with him as well. But I would challenge people that to keep in mind that everyone's perceptions of things are different. So, what do you think about any of that? About people not being able to properly identify what it is that, so like how you were saying, his actions didn't meet up with his words.
Yeah,
Like,
I
don't you
think
find that happening with other, like that just happens often in society? Because I feel like I see that amongst a lot of my students, to be honest, or my family members.
I definitely agree with that, especially since we're talking about him as an adolescent. It's already a time of confusion. And I think we mentioned this in the last one, where you actually can't diagnose someone with a personality disorder until the age of 18. And so if you're not educated in those senses and no one else around you is going through those same things, then maybe you start to imagine what it is that you have or what you're going through. Same way he like diagnosed himself with the snow thing. But as he got older and was like, he started to get really interested in the mind, probably because of his own issues. He wanted to gain back that control that we talked about. And
I
so
agree with that.
then you know what, let me do all of these things to try and understand myself. But I think in that process, maybe it went to a whole different level where he was like, ooh, I could actually get power from what I'm learning about myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that's funny. So Frank was the one last week that was like, I like this Dr. Schultz. So Frank just said what you just said. So that's actually funny. Frank, I wasn't making fun of the way that you say that. I was saying like Dr. Schultz has somebody that likes her more than me. I was just kidding though. But it says, what's the saying again? With great power comes great responsibility. You can put someone on a pedestal, and if you do that often, they might believe they own it. That is true. Let me tell you guys something for your own life. Putting people pedestals are made to fall off of. Don't put people on a pedestal ever in life. And don't ever want yourself to be on a pedestal, because again, just remember that the pedestal, like that's it makes things wobbly in relationships. So, but yes, Frank, I think that is the right quote. And I see what you're saying. But Frank, what do you mean by, like, how would that relate to Bryan then? You know what I mean? And let's see what other people are saying too. But I totally agree with your statement. So, Truth, let's see what she's saying. If you notice, hold on, let's say, if you notice you're treating someone like a king or queen, but they return the favor by treating you like a peasant. Oh my gosh, that happens all the time, right? So what do you guys, so him being a PhD student, I see that too. Oh, and Frank said the same thing. So what do you guys think? So him being a PhD student, I do think that a lot of his students, and again, we don't know if this is true, but I do remember watching interviews with some of the students that he had currently, and they said that he would grade them as if they were doctorate students, that he would often forget that they were undergrad students. And I have to say, as someone who just got their doctorate and is a teacher, I fall victim to that. When somebody said that, I was like, oh my God. And I thought about it and I'm like, am I doing that to like my students in my research methods class? And I said something to them and they were like, oh my God, yes. And I was like, oh my God. So I think like part of that is normal, but another part of it is him wanting to show that he was smarter than everybody else. Because even when people, like they said, they would take his advice, like when people took my advice, I praised them for it and was like, queen, or like I would give them, where it never seemed like it was good enough. Like he always came back at you with something else. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that they even said that one of the last times that he was being like the helper in class, that it was a debate where everybody in class got to debate him. He probably felt like a god in that moment because he's the teacher, right? And it's how others perceive you.
So I think I have a timeline of September to December of when he was
You
a
could
TA.
share if you want. Wait, hold on. Let me see. I could make you.
And so I think it kind of shows more of the narcissistic side, this tendency. Like if he was already on this build up, right? I'm about to become a PhD, people are going to worship at my feet kind of mentality because he's the TA and everybody thinks he's a hard ass. But then he started giving really good grades. So what I had read was he was actually fired from being a TA, or at least suspended on September 23rd. Right. And he had altercations with the professor, like in front of people and everything like that. So then October 3rd, he had a meeting with.
Do you have this like where you can share it or no? Do you just have it like written down?
I have it written down.
Gotcha.
I have it written
that's
down.
fine.
But, it was in a podcast and then it was on the news. when this first
Gotcha.
happened. And so October 3rd, he had a meeting about his professional behavior, and they were trying to come up with a plan. October 21st, he received an email that he was not meeting those expectations and failing at the plan that was derived. November 2nd, he had another meeting about how to improve the failure plan that he already had in place. And then you don't hear anything else until December 7th. So in between that November 2nd and December 7th is when the murders occurred, right? And so December 7th, he meets about his progress. December 9th, he gets in a second altercation. And December 19th, he's officially let go. But I think the interesting thing about what we were talking about, the pedestal thing. So once he had that argument with the professor, I'd like to know what was said there, because if the professor was now putting this man in his place when he was supposed to be like the messiah of the classroom at that moment, did that pedestal fall so far and that triggered his, well, I need to now show you what I'm about, if he is the person who did the murders.
Yes, of course, everyone. This is all alleged, but I think they got the right guy, in my opinion. But I think that is such a good point. Also, Frank brings up that he got turned down for that the Pullman cloud-based forensics, and that was before he got there, because he and somebody else said that yes, a female got that job. That was right. So could you imagine? So I believe he already has issues with females, right? And now a female got that job, and that would be in like September. So if you are writing it down or whatever, add that to the timeline. Maybe we could come up with like a timeline or something that we could write down and present for next week, because I'm already pulling you into next week too. She doesn't know it yet, you guys, but she's going to meet next week too, because
well, the narcissistic thing is starting to make more sense as we're talking about this part of his life.
God, here we go. Look, read this one.
Thanks, Frank. So because if you think about, I don't know about you, but when I talk to my classes and we're going over personality disorders, I think one of the most dangerous people in the world is a narcissistic personality disorder. And I even fear them more than the antisocial and things like that.
But tell people why, because you have to remember that the average person right now that's watching this doesn't have us for class. So explain real quick, if you can, why.
Yep. So the reason why I think is when we described everything about the narcissistic person, it is the inflatedness. They're better than everyone. They sometimes need to be the center of attention, get recognition, depending on what they're going through. But I think one of the most damaging things is when their ego is so inflated and someone offends them, they become ambivalent, aggressive in nature, and the antisocial, say if we look at an antisocial with a serial killer tendency or a sociopathic tendency, they tend to think things through when they're offended, because they really don't give a shit about people's attitudes. But the narcissist does care about what other people think, and especially what they think about them. So if you say you suck and they always thought they were amazing, they all of a sudden become defensive, become aggressive in nature, and can flip their switch in about 2 seconds and really cause harm. So I fear them the most. So if that is what is actually happening with Bryan, then that trigger is definitely the catalyst to I'll show you what I can do type of mentality. Maybe.
That was brilliantly said. No, that was brilliantly said. I totally agree with everything you said right there. I do think that brings us, though, to the fact that he lacks empathy, right? So he seeks admiration. He has a low emotional reactivity. He's grandiose and possible fraud or exploitation. So we know that he stole his sister's iPhone. Now, you could say that was drug related, and that not anybody, but somebody that is in active addiction, that they may do something like that. So, excuse me. But even when he does his rap song, which, did you ever hear it yet? like before we meet next week, you have to listen to his rap song. So for next week, I'll pull up the words to it.
Okay.
Oh my God. He has a rap song. He was a SoundCloud rapper at one point. It was just one song. I guess it was a one-hit wonder. But he, all of that need for admiration and all, that's all narcissistic personality. So but you're right, because then when you look at antisocial personality, we're looking at some of the same things. So disregard for others' rights, that would be a big difference too. So this one, I think a narcissist can sometimes have a disregard for others' rights as well. So I see what you're saying about a lot of these symptoms overlapping. So if we had to say one of the big differences would be with antisocial personality disorder, you have to have been diagnosed with a conduct disorder before the age of 15, or at least have had conduct disorder in some sense. So maybe you weren't formally diagnosed by a psychiatrist, but because if we're talking 30 years ago, people didn't get diagnosed like that. So, but people know what I mean. So when you have conduct disorder before 15, and then at 18, you could then be diagnosed with antisocial personality. But with antisocial, just think of actually what it says, right? Antisocial as opposed to being prosocial. So I often talk about the difference between prosocial behavior and antisocial behavior. And there are plenty of people, so that you guys watching this know, that have antisocial personality disorder that will never go on to kill anyone. So I want everybody to remember that antisocial personality disorder, think of it as like a spectrum, and because it is, and there's a spectrum. So on one hand, you could have someone that's like a successful business owner, and they could have antisocial personality, never go on to do anything. Maybe they're like antisocial, like anti-society, because that's what that is. Maybe they have a disregard for others' rights. Maybe they lack empathy. They could be exploitive, superficial. So they could have all of these things, but never go on to become a serial killer. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you could have a serial killer. So I do want people to understand that there are many more sociopaths, as you might refer to it as, everybody out there, that are walking around that will never go on to kill someone. But that the group that do, that's what we're focusing in on now. So, but I do want others to know that we are aware that we're talking about a portion of antisocial personality disorder as a whole, because there's plenty of people with it that never go on to hurt. I mean, they go on to hurt people, but they never go on to like serial murder or kill people with a knife type thing. Does that make sense? Well, it does to you. Did I say that right? Is there anything you want to add?
No, yeah, I would say every serial killer, murderer who could probably also get diagnosed with antisocial, more than likely, but an antisocial person will not always be a murderer. They just want to be left alone most of the time. And they're just more extreme introverted, if you want to, for a lack of a better term.
So I'm going to add something today. So we often talk about what we call the dark triad, and that's just antisocial. Obviously, when I'm saying this stuff, please know that neither one of us are schooling each other, because we both teach the same classes. So we're putting it out there because I want to assume that there might be somebody listening that doesn't understand it and that needs clarification. But with the dark triad, for anybody out there, this is something that people are so interested in. So this would be antisocial, narcissism, and then Machiavellianism or sadism, pretty much. So I want to go over sadism real quick, because we went over the other two. So sadism is not classified, just so you guys know, in the DSM-5 as a personality disorder. However, it is considered in two forms. So in the DSM-5, we do have sexual sadism disorder, which is a paraphilic disorder, okay? And then we also have sadistic personality traits, which is not an official DSM-5 diagnosis, but it's often observed in individuals with antisocial personality disorder or people with narcissistic traits. So I do want to say that, and I'm going to go over the difference in a second. So, but I do want people to know that sadism in itself, or the word dark triad, the DSM-5 TR is the text revision, and they're revising it in a sense where they're looking at personality disorders a little bit different. So in all of them, personality disorders are classified on a separate axis than the rest of the disorders, because it's one of the things that you never deviate from. So for example, if I had depression, I would be at work and Dr. Schultz would notice and be like, hey, like, are you good? Like lately you haven't been like, so I would have deviated from my norm. With a personality disorder, it starts at birth and continues throughout your lifetime. So number one, it's hard to diagnose a personality disorder because the person that you're diagnosing is often combative and are like, F you, you're the one with the personality disorder. Like, who are you? Like when we tell my mom she's a narcissist, she gets like so mad at us. But it's funny because she's worried about what that might make her look like, right? Which is very narcissistic thing to say. So, but it's funny because we'll laugh at her and we'll be like, Mom, just stop talking because everything you're saying is just like reinforcing the narcissism. But we just laugh about it. It's whatever. But we do have sexual sadism. So that's a paraphilic disorder. And let me just tell people what that is real quick. So a paraphilic disorder involves intense and persistent sexual interest in others and other than those involving genital stimulation or preparatory fondling with consenting human partners. Paraphilic disorders cause distress or impairment, or they involve non-consenting individuals. Why is this important? And I'm going to give you guys a few examples that are listed in the DSM-5. But this is important because a lot of times we'll see, for example, it has been said that using a knife as the weapon, that the knife can be seen as an appendage. So do you think in any way that Bryan could have chosen the knife? And again, this would be symbolism. Do you think there could be any symbolism there as far as having a paraphilia?
There definitely could be. When we do research about people who kill others with knives, it is a personal kill. And it doesn't necessarily mean personal, like I know you. It just means personal.
I'm glad you said that.
Represent somebody I want to kill. So it's not, he may not have known these students. From what I was understanding from the reading, there was no link to the actual students themselves. Like he never dated anybody. I don't even think they were in his class because he was at a completely different school. But it could have been something where it's something as simple as he was driving and those group of kids were together, represented something to him in his own mind, whatever that may be, whether it was his parents and two sisters, because that kind of fits the bill with the one boy and three girls type of mentality, and something just clicked. The one thing we have to always understand, especially when we're trying to do analysis, is that we don't understand their minds. We don't know what they're thinking. We're only doing what we imagine could possibly be happening here. And so
it's based off of scientific research.
Correct. But at this
moment, we're not just guessing.
If he just saw somebody
absolutely
like, oh, these represent my family and I want to kill them. We don't know if that was what was going through his head. That's more of what I was getting at. But it makes sense to then go and do it with a knife at that point if it was as personal as it seems to have been.
And you guys remember, right? So isn't it much more personal with a knife than it would be just like with a gun, right? Because with a gun, you could do it from far away. You could do it hiding, whatever. Like with a knife, you have to get up close and personal. One of the things, speaking of, so at one point, they say in the report that Dylan overhears him saying, and I want to get this right, if Jeff or Truth, make sure, or actually Nina's in here. She'll make sure I'm right. Nina, what does he say about, he doesn't say, don't worry, I'm here to help you. Is that what he says? Or does he say, it's okay, I'm here to help you? I forget which one it is. But so they're saying in the probable cause affidavit that Dylan said that she hears a male saying this. There were only 2 males in the house. It was either Ethan or it was Bryan. And they're talking about, they said this to Xana. So whether they said, I don't think he said it's okay. I think he said, I should have had it out. But if anybody knows what the exact words were, please tell me. But he says something like, it's okay, but then he definitely says, I'm here to help you. It's okay, I'm here to help you. Thank you, Nina. It's okay, I'm here to help you. I think I want to ask like who you think that is, because a lot of people are saying that could be Ethan, her boyfriend. But I'm like, if Rye came in and I was like, even in that situation, like, I don't know that he would be like, it's okay, I'm here to help you, Jape. You know what I mean? I think that was a very antisocial, narcissistic, sadistic thing to be like, don't worry, like you're next, like I got you. Like I think it was Kohberger, or whoever the person was that committed the crime.
Was the friend or boyfriend. I mean,
you don't.
Why would they say it's okay, I'm here to help you? They would just be covering you, trying to get you out, shushing you if you were crying to stay quiet so we don't get found out. I don't think they would say those things. It does.
Yeah, could you imagine your husband being like, Anya, I'm here to help you?
No, it sounds to me like Bryan was trying not to get wake up the whole house.
Yes, he didn't want her to react as much. Right. So he was like, calm down.
So, he just wanted to make her think she was safe in order for him to finish the job he was there to do, maybe. Or it could also be, the sick mind of his, like, it was no one there to help you. And so you're trying to give comfort, but it's a false sense of security. And so you're getting them to fear you, but in a reverse psychological type of way.
Absolutely. And it's a sadistic thing. So Rondi says doesn't matter. And I think that the reason that it matters in this conversation is because we're talking about possible, we're tying this back to possible disorders. So in that sense, that would be important for this. So maybe not as important to the case, but again, a big difference of my channel too, right, is that I'm trying to tie it into psychology so that we can use cases to talk about things that people deal with in everyday life. So, but I do agree with you though, that maybe that might not be important, Rondi, to the, to the case, but to saying whether somebody is antisocial, for example, I do think that it is important for that. So I will say that. Let me get back to paraprolific disorders real quick. So some examples that are in the DSM. So the DSM is, just in case anybody, it's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and we are on the text revision. So it's been revised. And one of the things that they changed when it comes to personality disorders in the new text revision is that they are starting to put in there. So as of right now, with all the disorders, there's criteria that you have to meet in order to move to the next criteria, and then get diagnosed. So, and I've discussed this before, it has to deal with symptoms, time duration, and the most important to me is, does it interfere with at least 2 areas of daily functioning, right? So that's even how we diagnose personality disorders. However, people are starting to look at this trait type theory where we're looking at it a little bit differently. So they are starting to look at things like sadism and paraprolific disorders and looking at different traits. And because a lot of these traits overlap, if the new DSM, like the next DSM, there's a chance that in the future, somebody could be watching this confused, because they might be like, wait a minute, aren't they under the same umbrella? Because they kind of are the way that it is now. But if we do the trait type theory, it will be even more, as far as the symptoms overlapping. So I did want to point that out too. So wait, Kohberger was also studied. Wait, hold on. What does it say? Kohberger also studied the death drive. In his eyes, he could have been helping her, stopping her suffering. Nina, girl, I love you, but don't you think that would be too I don't know. Don't you think that would be giving him too much credit? I feel like if anything, that was a sadistic thing to say. Don't worry, I'm here. I'm going to put you out of your misery type thing. But, and again, that's exactly what you're saying too. I guess maybe that's what, I guess because you're typing, I can't really tell how you're saying it. So do you mean it like that, Nina? Like, I'll put you out of your misery, because if that, I actually agree with that 1,000%. With paraphilic disorders, in the meantime, until we just, so you know, Anya, the chat is like, it's a good like 45 seconds behind usually. So if we ask a question, I usually go on to the next thing while I'm waiting for people to answer, because if not, it would be very like long pauses. So
That's fine.
while we wait for people to put stuff
So
in the
can I
chat,
say something about that?
please do. Please.
So, because I even see Frank is saying like angel of death and things like that.
Oh, I
I
didn't see that.
don't
Yeah.
think this would have been a mass murder if it was an angel of death. The mass
But
murder.
do you think he's a mass murderer? I feel like he's I feel like he's even though he's not real, he doesn't fit.
I think by definition, he is a mass
Yes,
murderer.
by definition, he is.
Because there's been no other incidents whatsoever.
Absolutely.
And the fact that he killed more than 3 people in the sitting, it makes it a mass murder. I'm not sure what I would call him yet, because again, until we get his psychological
You don't
state,
think he would have done this again?
I do. But
so then if he would have done this again and there was a month in between,
the reasoning, like I'm struggling with the reasoning behind it, because we don't.
Well, my thing would be, so according to like Dr. Ricardo, sometimes people talk about it, whatever. Like according to what we have right now, as far as labeling it, you're right. He 100% is a mass murderer. But and a month went in between, so if he didn't get caught and did it again, and he had that that downtime, that would have then crossed over into serial killer, which I feel confident. And again, you guys, this is only in my opinion, and we are not diagnosing anything. But in my opinion, as a human being, think that he was a serial killer mindset, and that he just, and how ironic is it, you guys, that he was going to school for criminal justice, but he was specializing in cloud-based forensics. How crazy is that? That's pretty much what fucks him up in the end.
Yeah. So
like, how ironic is that?
Yeah, I think he definitely, again, if this was him, definitely would have went on to be serial. And this was his first kill. So I don't know what it would have become, because we always know a lot and then not enough by the first kill.
No, she's right, you guys. And what if he just wanted to do this so he could become a teacher and like use this case as like an unsolved case for his students? And that would really, if you're narcissistic, make you like the only expert at this, because you're the one that did it. So
I'm wondering if it wasn't over Christmas, if he would have embedded himself into the investigation at all.
He definitely already did, in my opinion. I think so. Hell yeah.
I think he would have done more.
Probably. I agree.
If a true narcissist was there, they want to know, what do you have? I want to stay a step ahead of you. But they would probably also want to get credit, but not get caught type of mentality. All of
I agree.
Coming together. So it would have been really interesting to see, if he didn't get caught so fast, what that would have turned into, because I think he was just trying to figure things out for himself.
So in the chat, I'm going to ask you to put a 1 if you think that he would have just done this and then, maybe use this in the future as like whatever, or put a 2 if you think he would have reoffended. So a 1 if you think that this was it, a 2 if you think he would have reoffended. I just put 1 finger up instead of 2. So 1 if this was a one-hit wonder type thing, not one-hit wonder, that was a bad terminology. I'd take that back. I mean, if this was like a one-time thing. And 2, if you think it would have been a serial type thing. Because in my opinion, it would be a 2, but I could be wrong. All right, but why we wait? Oh, we got tons of 2s. Okay, thank you guys for typing that in. And I'll continue to look for that. With the paraphilic disorders, I just want to give you guys a few examples of this in the DSM-5. So exhibitionism is a paraphilic disorder. So this would be exposing yourself to an unsuspecting person. I don't know that we have any, I'm not connecting any of this to Bryan right now. This is me going off on a side tangent just to give you guys a few examples, just in case people are like, wait, go back to that paraphilific thing. Like, what does that mean? So I'm just giving you a few examples. So this is not a Bryan thing necessarily. But if anybody thinks that he fits any of these, I'd be happy to hear what you think. So, and the next one is fetish disorder. So this is a use of a non-living object or specific body parts for sexual arousal. Then we have voyeuristic disorder, which would be voyeuristic disorder, which would be touching or rubbing up against non-consenting persons. Pedophilic disorder, which would be prepubescent children. That's not it. Sexual narcissism disorder. So arousal for being humiliated, beaten, bound, or otherwise made to suffer. That would be really sadistic. That's like BTK killer shit. Then we have sexual sadism disorder, which is arousal from inflicting suffering on another. Voyeuristic, which is observing an unsuspected person naked or in the process of undressing or engaging in sexual activity. And then arousal, I cut that one off. I don't even know what it was, but they're the ones that we have here. So I don't know if any of you think that he fits any of this. I guess you could say with the evidence that that he was a sadist in some sort, because how do you repeatedly, like, and then the thing is, like, you didn't do it to one person, you did this to 4 people. So you did it over and over and over again. So it wasn't like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like it was self-defense or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure.
Would you consider that
sadism yet?
I guess.
And I think we're missing information there. I don't think there actually is a sexual component to his murders. I almost think it's just pure psychological at this point. Doesn't mean it wouldn't turn into something.
I think it's like,
but
I think that, not that I think that it's sexual. I think, but I do. So and again, you guys, this is all just our theories. And I am so glad that we're not seeing completely eye to eye, because how boring would the show be if we just agreed on everything? So I think this is good. And you guys, this is what professionals would be doing in a situation. We would be thinking about all of the possibilities, because if we just had people that thought like me, I would get it wrong, right? If we just had people that thought like Danya, did you just hear what I said? Dr. Schultz, then we might get some things wrong. So by having all of us, including all of you in the chat, and just so you know, I never feel as though I am better than anybody else. And I know that Anya doesn't either. We're Anya and Jamie. We both happen to have advanced degrees, and we both put a lot of time and research and stuff into being educators. So we come from that. But please know out there that we value everything that you all say, including our students, all of you. And students often I'll say something like you did tonight. I forget what it was in the very beginning. Oh, the pedestal. That came from Frank. Frank said the word pedestal. I talked about knocking off the pedestal. You then connected the pedestal to the teaching thing. So like, that's how it really works, like out there. And that's how this channel was meant to be. So I just thank you guys for in the chat also being active and engaged. So, okay, so let me move on from that then. Real quick, just sadism just derives from pleasure from inflicting suffering on another person. The person lacks empathy. Again, that goes with, so for the personality disorders, lacking empathy goes with antisocial, narcissism, what's this one? Sadism, which isn't even a personality disorder, it's a trait. Paraphilific disorders, and is that the only one? Oh, I know what I wanted to bring up. So with sadism, I think we went over that. We're not sure exactly about the sadism thing yet. I totally get that. This is my next one that I want to put out there and see what you guys think. So what about, wait, ready for it? What about schizotypal personality disorder or schizotypal traits? So not personality disorder. I do not think that he has schizotypal personality disorder. Let me put that out there. But do you think he has some like schizoid traits or schizotypal? So let me give you guys.
We'll go back to what I was saying before, where what is the narrative he has in his head when he picked this group of students? Because it could totally be the schizotypal type of mentality.
Oh, really? You don't think that's crazy of me to say
I
that?
actually don't think it's crazy now that you say it, because think about it. So schizotypal is the whole idea of thinking oddly, right? About something.
And he's an odd person,
Not
I
really
think.
going to have the same thought process. I used to have a client who had this, and she got in an argument with a person in the mall. And basically, she went up to this girl and said, listen, if your shoes keep talking shit about me, I'm going to have to punch you in the mouth. And the woman was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, your shoes are giving you information that is wrong about me. And so that's just an example, guys, of like how odd the thinking could possibly be. So if we look at all of his history of not having empathy, not having feelings, being depersonalized, being derealized, I think it's completely plausible.
I can't believe you just said that. I thought you were going to call me crazy. So let me just, for you guys out there. So the DSM criteria for schizotypal would be a pervasive pattern of social and interpersonal deficits, cognitive or perceptual distortions. And again, you guys, my whole thing on Do They See Me Now is about the fact that he had cognitive distortions every time he tried to change something or do something like extreme, even like, so it wasn't even like he just lost 50 pounds, he lost 130. Like, so it wasn't that he just dabbled in drugs on the weekends, like he became a heroin addict. And so I feel like he did things, an eating disorder, he took that to the extreme. So I feel like he did that. And again, a lot of that had to do with being seen, and a lot of that has to do with not having interpersonal skills, so being deficit in there. And then we have cognitive or perceptual. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, but
okay. And eccentric behavior beginning by early adulthood, as indicated by 5 or more of the following. So you have to have 5 or more of the following: ideas of reference, excluding delusions, odd beliefs or magical thinking. Magical thinking would be what that person did about the boots. That's magical thinking, right? Unusual perceptual experiences, including bodily illusions, visual snow, right? Odd thinking and speech. So vague, metaphorical, over elaborate. I think he, as a 14-year-old, I would consider his Tappa Talks as over elaborating, in my opinion. But he also has, I don't know, Nina would probably be good at this. Nina, you tell me what you think about this too. So suspicious or paranoid ideation. So I don't know if he was suspicious. We really don't know this, you guys. I'm just going to read them, and I'm going to stop putting them on anybody. So let me just read them and shut up. Suspicious or paranoid ideation, inappropriate or constricted affect. Affect, you guys, is your is like emotion. So, and it would be like if somebody had a flat affect, you wouldn't be able to tell what they're feeling at that moment. Like they're giving you nothing. It's almost like poker face, just nothing at all. So that would be a flat affect, for example. So this would be an inappropriate affect, meaning maybe you smile. Chris Watts, I don't know if anybody remembers the Sermon on the Porch thing where he talks about how he's like, I just want them to come home. And then he's like, and I'm like, what is he doing? Like he has like these inappropriate smiles. Like that is not when you should be smiling. That's an example of that. And remember, people can have traits of things, you guys, and not be disordered. So just because I gave you an example of the shoes for the one or Chris Watts for the other, it doesn't mean that any of them are disordered. It's just examples so people understand what we're saying. There's only one more. Hold on. Or there was Oh, no. Behavior or appearance that is odd, eccentric, or particular. I think his behavior is odd. Lack of close friends other than first-degree relatives. Excess social anxiety that does not diminish with familiarity, often related to paranoid fears. Dude, I think he was schizotypal. Boom. What do you guys think?
Sounds plausible.
I think he fits schizotypal more even so than like sadism.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So why does that matter? Because when people talk about the dark triad, I'm not convinced yet that he fits the dark triad. I think if anything, I would swap out sadism for the schizotypal. But this is the other thing, you guys. Again, this could be traits of certain things. And I agree with the DSM 5TR, the text revision, where it doesn't just look at our regular diagnostic criteria and it brings the traits into it. Because I think if you didn't have any labels on any of these and you just had symptoms, I feel like if you picked out from the different symptoms that we would keep going back to schizotypal, for me, antisocial, and narcissism more than any of the others. But I don't know what you guys think. What do you think? Oh, Duper's Delight. So Duper's Delight, you guys, that's contempt. That's what Duper's Delight is. So that's when your micro expressions occur quicker than your brain can get your body to fake an expression. So a micro expression literally would be like real quick. Oh wait, what did Frank say? That's why you need to read his responses on the visual snow. It's like he invented that. That's how his responses were. Do we have that, Anya?
I don't have. I have some.
Hold on,
of what he
look
said.
it up. I got it.
Yeah, I have some of.
I got this.
But it's funny that Frank says that, because as you're reading all of this stuff, it just popped into my mind. Like, what if his adolescent presence online was complete bullshit? What if that was...
What if what's bullshit?
Everything he was saying about not being able to relate to family, not being able to do that. And it was all a response to not being seen, like we've been talking about. And so to be seen, he basically started to get people to see him, look up to him for his bravery of coming out into the masses, telling people about his problem, them trying to work on it, and then years later coming back and being like, I've overcome this. What if the whole thing was really a buildup to this persona that he was going to eventually get into?
Oh, I don't know.
I agree with Frank. It could just be he was trying to gain dominance
and
test and see the water.
I think that a lot of this is more, yes.
Because I think I always
look. So I found the visual snow thing, Frank.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's parents too.
Be dominant. I see it. Go ahead. You're good. I do too.
There's no information.
Go ahead. What do you think about that? Because I do too.
There's no information we've been given. You can't tell me that this kid goes on the internet, says all of this stuff, and nobody knows.
So I don't think.
This is
just so you know, Nina, and Nina, are you still here? Well, this is the thing. Nina is like she sends me stuff. I actually have some of the coolest stuff for Nina in here. And Nina, I read every single thing finally. I was finally able to read everything. So I caught up. But Nina, talk about pay attention to the details. And she puts a lot of things together. So, for example, in the arrest thing, they were talking about page, I forget the number, but they're talking about something about a page that they found that he wrote down. But in the affidavit, it just says page 115 or something. I'm making that up, you guys, the page number. But Nina then went and looked and tried to see what book it could be from. And she does some really good research. So Nina, if at any point you have to course correct us, please, please, please feel as though you can. And I'm just finding this over here so that I can read it up here, and I'm not I don't have my face on the screen, but if not, I can put my face to the screen and read it that way too. But Nina sent me some really cool stuff. Oh, real quick, I want to tell you one thing that Nina found that was really cool. So in a 1998 study published by J. Peirce Psychology, found that threatened egotism is more important cause of aggression than low self-esteem. Yeah, right? So I agree with that too. Oh, 118, Rondi? I think it was 118. The common theme throughout the studies is that those who perceive a threat to their high self-esteem are most likely to perpetrate violence. What do you think about that?
Yeah, perfect. It's kind of what I was saying about the narcissist and why I find them to be the most dangerous. Because if you deflate that self-esteem in any way, they're going to become aggressive in nature.
Mm-hmm. True says from what she understands, his mom wore the pants in the family.
Which would be so telling and give me so much information.
It would. Truth, where
Um,
was that information this whole
my
time?
brain just
I
wants
forget
to
where you heard
go
that.
back to like psychodynamic Freudian stuff right now.
That's funny you say that because I don't know if you know this, but he was a Freud person. And
I'm not surprised.
did you know that?
No, I didn't.
You're not surprised. So
I'm not surprised.
he was a Freud person, and I did notice that somewhere in the chat, somebody said something about Freud because he literally is a Freud person. So Nina sent me, and I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's the painting, that Freud painting, where it says what men have on their mind. Here, I'll pull it up. It's crazy. Wait till you see this.
Yeah, Frank, like, I also agree with you. He's the only boy. He's the baby. Mom wears the pants. Sisters are idolized. There's a lot of things happening there with that mom-son dynamic, I think.
I love having you on here too because you're able to like talk while I'm looking this up. I found it, you guys.
You know,
wait do you guys see how weird this? Not weird, but well, I
love Freud to an extent. But yeah.
Yeah, I think Freud did a lot of good things for us. I really do. And I've said that before. I think where Freud lost people was that at the time that Freud was around, you have to remember, like, you weren't allowed to wear, like, you weren't allowed to, like, show your wrist type thing. Like, that's how, like, prudish it was back then. So what the hell was my point of that? I forget what my point was with that, you guys.
I agree with you.
Oh, I know what it was. So he came out with psychosexual stages and people were uncomfortable with it. So like people were very prudish back then. And they were like, what do you mean my kid's in the anal stage? Like, or they're in the oral stage. And I think that people just shut him out because of, my daughter always says, she's like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So wait, let me show you guys this picture. Okay, so here we go. Wait, let me see if I can make that one bigger. So it's called What's on a Man's Mind, okay? And apparently Kohberger had this picture. It's one of the things that, here, I don't know if I make it bigger, if it's going to make everything else bigger. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. Small.
Or is it too small? Do you see? It's really small on your screen. All right, let me see if I can pull up a better one though. Well, if it's small on your screen, then it's.
That's what.
Yes, is this one better over here? Maybe.
It's fine for me anyway.
Yeah, so it looks like Freud's like looking down. Okay, so it looks like Freud's like looking downwards, like it's his peripheral vision, and the way that they do it. Oh no, it's the same picture. It didn't get any better. So it just looks like a woman over here, and that the woman's leg is. I was like, oh, somebody needs a razor, but it's literally. So it says here. Let's see. I read about everything. It was so no. This is somebody's own thing. Freud draws from neurotic men in psychoanalysis, though he observed the same behavior in ordinary healthy people. Wait, one of the things I just seen here that I do want to say something about, I want people to remember, no matter if we're talking about Freud, Piaget, whoever we're talking about, you have to remember the times that they did their that they created their theories, who they studied, to just be critical thinkers. So when it comes to Freud, one of the things I think that we do need to point out is that he only did research on white males.
Or crazy females.
And that's important.
Or what he deemed as hysteric. So.
And how crazy is it that, yes, Rondi, that's all he did is research on. And this is the thing, though. You have to remember that at the time, that might have been all that was available for him to, like, he might not have known a more diverse population. You know what I mean? And also during Freud's time, cocaine was legal. So if you think about it with psychoanalysis, we had to change it to psychodynamic theory because no insurance company is just going to pay for an infinite amount of sessions. So we had to give it like techniques and make it, like as if we're not going to try to keep somebody trapped in therapy forever. But if you think about it, what is a side effect of cocaine? Speaking. So it's like when you come in, I might be like, can I get you a Diet Coke or whatever? And back then it was legal and it wasn't like frowned upon. It was just like offering somebody a drink. So if you're at his office and you have a cocaine, I said a cocaine, I meant a Coca-Cola. You have a cocaine, which the number one ingredient was in Coca-Cola was cocaine. That's where it got its name. Could that have played a role in why people went back and why they spoke so much? Like, what do you think? Yeah, Frank, I said a cocaine. Mhm.
Yeah, I
What do
mean,
you think about that?
it's definitely possible, you know.
Like, because I
I've
always
never done
wondered.
cocaine, so I'm not really sure what the effects are per se. But even Freud, I mean, I think it's different for each person. He tried to become famous from cocaine research, and it didn't really work out for him, thank God. But he took cocaine every day of his life. He gives it to his wife. She goes crazy. So it's,
Which then goes into his whole thing about neuroticism and females being neurotic and stuff, right? So if you're giving your wife cocaine, and we all know that everybody reacts differently, he could have just been, he could have adapted to it, and so it didn't have the same effect on him. You know what I mean? And now he's giving it to her, and who knows if she has a little bit of psychosis, or even if she has no psychosis, like you
yeah.
could see how that might make you paranoid, or what he would deem as neurotic.
Which could
However,
have
I
also
do.
happened with Brian, since with his drug use. God knows
Mm.
if that was even how true that is, now that I sit and think about it, because I think I said this in the last one, where, how do you just do it and then all of a sudden you don't do it anymore? You just have that much willpower when you're depressed, have depersonalization, derealization, you have this snow syndrome, you're just able to give up drugs. I don't buy it.
What do you mean? You don't think he really had an?
No,
Because
he
I will
might.
tell
It
you,
just
I
he
bet you
keeps
there's a bunch of
exaggerating.
people. So wait, if anybody, and somebody just said especially heroin. So, but is anybody in here? Does anybody in here know of anybody who did do that? Because my friend Kate, when she unfortunately passed away from, well, forget it. We're not even going to talk about that. Whatever. She passed away from complications of MS. You know that. I hate bringing that up though with you.
Right.
But anyway, so but when she was back in her college days, she swore that her MS was triggered from her like extreme heroin use decades earlier. But she was doing heroin all the time, every day. Like she was completely addicted to it. And one day she woke up and was like, I have to stop. And she went home and detoxed and just never did it again.
No, I definitely think it's possible. I'm just saying in Brian's situation with
I'm sorry,
how
honest. Honest dad passed from heroin. I'm sorry.
oh, I'm sorry to hear that too. Um, but I think just the fact of him being a teenager, having all the issues he talked about, I don't see this as someone who all of a sudden was able to just wake up one day and say, I don't want this anymore. Like,
So I think we're going to find out that he probably was court ordered to go to rehab for some
maybe.
reason. I think his dad, if I'm correct, and Nina, again, you're like Nina seems to know all this stuff, but I believe his dad called the police on him. So we're like, I don't know about you guys. What would you do? So put a 1 in chat if you will call the police on your kid in that situation. Put a 2 in chat if you would have handled it like within the household. I have to be honest, like the way I grew up, I don't know that I would have called the cops.
I'm not sure.
But that could be what saved that could have saved his life. Because
Could have,
that, who knows, that could have court ordered him to get rehab. Oh, warning. Nina says he went to rehab 2 times.
okay.
And also Nina
Well,
quit
that's
meth.
good.
Nina quit meth almost 13 years ago, cold
Yeah,
turkey. You
awesome.
go, girl. That is awesome.
So good. Well, I'm glad, like it, but maybe the cocaine, maybe the heroin, then he ended up almost swapping drugs. And instead of a physical drug, it became his obsession with forensic psychology, neuropsychology, crime, that type of stuff too.
Gotcha. And Frank seems to think real quick that he did it. He went to rehab voluntarily, which thank you, Frank, for telling me that, because again, I didn't know. I was saying, because because Dr. Schultz is saying that she didn't buy that. So I'm saying maybe he had to go to rehab for whatever reason. But Nina, do you know, like you said, he went twice. We're both, oh, Nina,
Oh.
Nina, let's everybody say, a little prayer for Nina to keep her strong today. Nina is like the queen on this. Nina, I don't know, everybody grieves differently, but would coming up for a few minutes with us and giving us information, would that help you at all today, or is this a day that you just want to hang back? I know everybody's different and I just want to make sure that I'm able to support you. So just know that I'm here to support you, Nina. And when we do hang up, I am going to get in touch with you just to check in and make sure that you're okay. Yeah, Nina, I'm so sorry. But Nina, let me know if you want to come up for a few minutes and give us, because I feel like you're literally she literally is like the authority on this stuff. She has done so much research on this case. Oh, Nina, we love you. But Nina, let me know if you want to come up. I'll send you the link. Nina has been through a lot, you guys, and a lot of people on the channel have been through a lot, and we do appreciate all of you trusting each other to let each other know, whether you are struggling with one thing or another. And I think that it's important too, because I think that it allows people to know that there's, like, if you're struggling right now, anybody out there, that there are people in our community that you could, I'm sure Nina or anybody would, that is in recovery would help somebody if they were struggling and needed help. I know that you would, right? So it's like, just know that nobody here is ever judging anybody, and that this is not a place of judgment. And that if anybody ever needs resources, I can help you. Unfortunately, I couldn't help you personally because state to state has different laws, but I can most certainly help you find somebody within your state to talk to, things like that, or just hear you if you just want to be heard for a little bit. So I'm really sorry about that, Nina. Nina, if you feel like you want to come up at all for a couple of minutes, if that would help you get your mind off of this and maybe get you back in a different headspace, please let me know, because I would be more than happy for you to join us for a few minutes to give us some information. But in the meantime, while she said reaching out is the most important step, you have to be alive to recover. Amen, Nina. That is so right. That's so right. So I think that that's important too. I know when it comes to addiction, that has to be like so hard. And for Bryan, Nina, I'm curious actually to think, I'm okay on to Kohberger. Nina, would you come up for a few minutes to tell us a little bit about Kohberger? Because I feel like we have some questions and I feel like you know the answer to all of them. She really is an amazing person. Anyway, while we wait for her to respond, because there is a very long lag, some of the things that Nina sent me was that Washington State University described Bryan Kohberger, and this is a direct quote, as sometimes rude and condescending and capable of becoming angry over seemingly minor issues. So that would go right into it. Do you mind if we have Nina come up for
Of course not.
a couple of minutes with her? Okay, cool. Here you go, Nina. Because she literally, she wouldn't even have to read the stuff. She already knows it. So Nina, I put that in the chat for you. So come up, and as soon as I see you, I'll put you up. Also, Kohberger, while we're waiting, Kohberger talked down to female students and graded them unfairly compared to men during his time. Here she is. Hi, Nina.
Hey.
I'm so sorry. I know you don't want us to focus on you.
Let me just say that for a long time, I never thought I would hear myself say this, but I'm blessed to be his voice. I'm blessed to be able to tell his story, and I'm blessed to give his death purpose. So, I appreciate the condolences and the I'm sorries and everything. but you got to consider my son's death may reach more people than his life ever could have.
Seriously, we literally, you guys teach that the only death that we would never expect somebody to get over is the death of a child. However, you can try to make meaning out of it. And if that isn't making meaning out of it, I don't know what is. So like, there is no better way to honor your son than to do just that. So, you know what I mean? So let's try to get you back in like a goofy Nina
You mean that
headspace.
Kohberger guy.
Let's talk about that Kohberger guy. So tell us, what do you know about his rehab, Nina?
Now, okay, part one, the first time with rehab was when he was at Brandywine with the eating disorder.
Oh, so it was a dual thing.
So yeah, it was a dual diagnosis.
Okay.
And then the second time is when he found the Kaufman diet. And see the that's when I was telling you that I found where I thought that the Kaufman diet was always for the visual snow. Well, come to find out, it wasn't for the visual snow. It was for that candida overgrowth, which is yeast.
Oh yeah, she was telling me about it, and she's laughing because I was like, "Wait, he had a yeast infection?" And then we just I'm like, "I am so straight A stupid sometimes," but that's why we just laughed. Go ahead.
But he did the Kaufman diet because of the candida overgrowth and toxins. He really got obsessed with the toxins and the yeast and stuff like that. And with the Kaufman diet, that's when it does the exercise and the running, the kickboxing, the discipline, and all that. And so
is that when
was
he got into that?
Yes.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
And that's when he went to rehab and said, "Got to get my life." Well, I'm not even going to say it was to get his life straight. I think it was more the obsession. Hang on. I think it was more of the obsession of getting his system clean, of the toxins and
I see. That would actually fit what you were saying, Anya, right? Because you were saying like you don't buy it that he was just like, let me stop. But if he started to become, and you guys, does anybody know, Nina, do you know how long he was on heroin for?
How long what?
He was on heroin for?
Oh my God. It was like from the time he was, I think like 3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years.
Because I know Ashley died in 2018. And he
remind
had
people
actually,
who Ashley is. You don't know.
What's my groceries are here, so my dogs are going crazy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have to get at them real quick? Go ahead. So, what's her name? She just said it too. Ashley. So there's a girl. I think Ashley is the girl that he liked when he was younger. And I think she rejected him. I think she became, she told him that I believe she might've been a lesbian. Is that the one that, or did she just reject him? She wasn't into him. I want to say and learn, but I have to go and put my toddler to bed. Honest, thank you so much. And she said she'll see you tomorrow, Dr. Schultz.
I can say it.
Thank you for coming. And we hope you come again just because you want to. We would love to have you. So we have, she doesn't know BK. So I'm glad that, I'm glad you just asked that. So she doesn't know BK. However, Nina literally she is never asleep and she's constantly doing research. And one thing I will tell you about Nina is that when she sends me like these big packets and stuff, she always adds the resource where she gets it from. So it's not just like I heard blah, blah, blah. Now, is some of it might be speculation or us trying to make sense of it? Absolutely. But nobody here knows him. However, Lori, I don't know if like this is your first time. I hope I said that right. Is it Lorraine? That's a beautiful name. Lori, she has it right next to it. I just had to read a little further. It says Lori right next to it. But yeah, so Lori wanted to know how you knew BK, and I was just explaining that you don't personally know him, but that if anybody in here knows him, it's probably you because of all of the research that you've done. Tons of research.
I feel like I don't know him And I blame Gage for it because he challenged everybody to get to know him as a person, not as a defendant. And that really intrigued me when he did that. And so that's when I started my deep dive. And so what I did was I learned that he was a libertarian. He's a registered libertarian. And then I read every comment from the Tappa Talk, anything and everything I could get my hands on. And then I learned that, he was a big Freud fan. I'm
I
56
printed it
years
all
old,
out.
never
Nina,
thought
look.
I would be reading pages of Freud, but I read
Pages.
thousands of pages of Freud.
Wow.
Mhm.
And I basically let his interest guide my research. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
That
I
makes
didn't
total
try to
sense.
guide it.
Mhm.
Right. So
And
you didn't have a skin in the game where today I'm like, I think schizotypal and stuff like that. You pretty much went into it just clear eyed and you just kept taking in information. I get
Right.
it. That makes total sense.
And that's how I came across
Like
Ashley
how you've been
Flugel and
able,
all that.
yeah.
I mean, I've
So
gone
can
as
you
far
tell
as,
us real quick about Ashley Flugel?
okay, Ashley
Because I don't
and,
think everybody knows who that is.
okay, I will never call him Bryan because I do not know him personally. I call him, it's Kohberger, and that's just the way, I can't, I don't know him to call him by his first name.
Okay.
And so they did heroin together, and she was a friend. She was, I guess, probably one of the only female friends that I can really find. You know what I'm saying? And he was really
Yeah,
infatuated with her and everything, but she was a lesbian.
that's right.
And
That's right.
so in 2018, she died of a heroin overdose. And I even talk about it in one of my videos about the guilt and stuff because he had actually tried to get her to go to rehab with him. And so, and then in 2021, the guy that introduced him to heroin died of a heroin overdose.
Wait, is that around when he gets clean? Could that have anything
No,
to do with it? Like,
he got clean. I would say probably because, okay, I know for a fact it's like 2016 because I have a text message between him and a friend, and it says that he has been clean for 2 years. And the text message was around 2018, 2019. So,
Okay.
and
okay.
it
So
says that
Anya,
he had
add
been
that to your
clean.
timeline.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
seriously, because it's important.
and see, then I was intrigued, like the picture you just showed. Is that one I sent you?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, because I went down there and I was like, a man's mind. Well, Sigmund Freud. I mean, his main study was Sigmund Freud and Darwinism and stuff like that.
Nina,
And
I
then
don't
you
know if
get.
you could see this, but this is everything that you sent me. This is all of your stuff. And I appreciate every bit of it.
Well, I mean, one thing about me is I will never say anything unless I can produce receipts.
Yes, I agree with that, which is why I appreciate. That's why I wanted you to come up too, because I know that you know what you're talking about. Real quick, could you tell us? Because I want to be like, I forget sometimes that like Dr. Schultz has a life and stuff, and that I could stay up here for 12 hours, but that doesn't mean she has to. And I want her to come back next week. However, I do want to real quick just bring up Freud. Can you give us a little like thing about him and Freud, like what you got from your research, Nina?
I don't, well, we may need to talk to chat because they're saying that this is alleged, and I've never said that this was factual.
Yeah, I said before you even came up that we're all speculating here. So nobody oh no, I think they're talking about something about drugs. I don't think they're talking
Oh,
about this.
okay.
Yeah,
I just
I don't
didn't want
think that was
anybody.
about this.
I didn't want anybody to think that I am ever coming up here or anybody's panel saying this is a definite and that's a definite because I never would do that.
No, but I will tell you something. Like, so Nina did find out about like that Dr. Perchuk and stuff. And I know that like that's where I was definitely like threw in my eggs in the basket because I was like, what are the chances that we both went to the same eating disorders unit and we both had the exact same doctor? So the fact that you were able to find that out, that was big too. So I do think that you do your research and that you don't just throw things out there. But yes, this is all alleged. None of us know any of this. We're all speculating, and that's okay to speculate, right? Oh, was he taking online classes in 2021? They want to know.
Is that when his DeSales classes that everybody thinks is like this great and wonderful student and everything? Those were online classes. The teacher that recommended him has never met him. She does not know him in person. I have that. I have the receipt to that. She did an interview and stated that she knows nothing about him personally. She knows nothing. She has never met him in person. His classes were online. Now, I think that he may have like gone to some other classes or something, because I do know it talked about, that he was like 50 minutes away from there and stuff like that,
Oh, wow.
But what's her name? I sent that to you. It starts with, is it Bollinger? See, because what I don't understand is everybody wants to talk about, he's under, Ramsland and all that. And I mean, but the person that recommended him, I mean, this girl is, I say she's young because I'm 56. I think she's like 35 and she was the instructor.
Mm-hmm. It was his adjunct instructor. It was one of his instructors,
right?
For sure. And she said that he was one of 2 people that she had ever.
He said that he was brilliant.
Meanwhile, you guys, I wrote 12 letters of recommendation last week. 12. Unbelievable, right? So, but this lady said that she's only recommended 2 people in her entire career. So I think that does say a lot. So even if she hasn't met him, he got her to perceive him as someone that was capable enough that when he asked for a letter of recommendation, she agreed to do it. So I think if anything, Nina, right, doesn't that like then point to his personality and his ability to alter perception?
Oh, definitely. And like they said, this was all during COVID and all that.
Mm-hmm. So this is what we'll do, you guys. So I want Dr. Schultz to come back again. And I know that now we're going up to, when did we start? 7:30? It's 8:30.
Yeah, let me jump off here. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Let me jump off.
Nina, I was going to say after she jumps down, we could always join. I don't know why you don't do a live, Nina. Just start a live and we'll all jump up on panel. Like,
I am scared to
some
death.
YouTube hours. But there's
I am scared to death.
What if I promise you that I'll come up with you?
Or
you know what we could do, Nina? How about this? I have that thing I paid extra. So I have that the thing where we can both go live at the same time. So if you really did like panic and hang up, it would be fine because I would still be live type thing. So we could do that too. But that way you could start getting your face out there, because maybe that'll make you feel like you can do it, because you can.
Right.
You're literally the expert on this.
Yeah, I need 20 people to 500.
Okay, we got you. We'll figure it out. I hope people are subscribing to this. Who the hell knows?
Well, let me get supper cooked.
Oh, sounds good. I always forget too that people live all over the country and that it's not 9 o'clock at night for everybody. Yeah. So that's funny too. Thank you.
Actually, my groceries just got here, so I got to cook.
Yeah, right. And Nina, next week, I was going to ask if, I want to talk more about the Freud thing. So if you could think of any Freud stuff, send it to me, and I'm going to share it with Dr. Schultz too. And because next week I was going to say we should focus more on Freud and his interest in Freud, because that would be very telling.
One of the most interesting parts of that was what I put in there about the Eros and Thanatos.
What about it?
About him studying that and everything, the death drive. See, because that's one of the things that I made a video about when I put the name of the video is How Far is 10 Miles? Because he literally drove from
we could show parts of it or whatever.
Because he drove from a state with no death penalty to a state with death penalty.
Didn't Ted Bundy do that?
Yes. Now, see, that's a win-win situation, because if he doesn't get caught, he's better than Bundy. If he does get caught, then he gets to die.
Oh, yeah. Or he becomes somebody on death row, and I feel like.
And then he also says infamy is better than obscurity.
And he gets an identity, you guys. Either way, he gets an identity when he gets out of this. So if he gets found not guilty, he has an instant identity. If he gets found guilty, he has an instant identity. And I think my whole point that I always come back to is that I feel like it always goes back to that question, do you see me now?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And now
Is there
We're
a
all talking
personality
about,
disorder for that?
yeah, narcissistic. And you know what I mean? Like that would be a very narcissistic thing to do.
And see, that's
Absolutely.
sad because narcissists have such a bad name, and really they're just scared they're just scared people that don't feel like they belong anywhere.
I'm so glad Nina said that, because when I teach in my abnormal psych class, I tell people to think of narcissism as childlike.
Yeah, I mean, to
So
me,
narcissists are very childlike.
yeah, I mean, they just want to be accepted and be, they make themselves better than because they're less than.
But this is the thing. I feel like that's somebody with
I'm
overconfidence.
no doctor, so.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like there's a difference between having overconfidence and being a narcissist. Like with the narcissism, for example, a mother, if you're a narcissistic mother, when you look at your kid, you're literally looking at a mirror of you. So if your kid doesn't say what it is that you're expecting to hear, the kid is a disappointment, because the kid
I'm
makes
leaving.
the mother look
I'm
bad.
leaving when you start talking about parents.
Yeah, I know, right? We can do a whole conversation on that.
You know my mom.
Right. Well, actually, I don't, and I would love to hear
Well, you
about her
don't know
someday,
her,
so we'll
but
have to do it differently.
we've talked
No, I
about
know,
it.
but I would love to. Yeah, exactly. But I would love to get into it more someday. But thank you, Nina, for coming up. I appreciate you.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for all your kind words.
And yes, we're all praying for you today. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Okay. If anybody's struggling, please reach out.
Oh, I love that. I love Nina. She's great. And I want to thank everybody in chat as they're leaving for joining us. And next week, I don't know, are you good for 7:30 again?
Yeah.
Are you down with this? Like, do you like
Yeah,
this
I'm
thing we got
down
going?
for whatever you want to do. I'm having a good time.
I feel like now we're not on the same schedule anymore at work. So I feel like if we don't do this, we're not going to get to see each other too. So I like that too.
Facts.
You know what I mean? And we get to have really cool conversation with cool people. And look, you have Frank as your fan. Frank likes you. So
I love
that's a
Frank.
good thing. I know you. That's amazing.
I love them all. It's pretty cool.
It's amazing. Me too. Truth's my bitch. I'll laugh at that. All right. So next week, you guys, we're going to focus in on Freud. My email is attached to my page. Please, I hope everybody subscribed and liked. Frank wants to know how if he can contact you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I will figure something out for you.
So how about this?
If you want, I'm on Instagram, those types of things, as Dr. Anya Schultz.
Oh, there you go. There you go. And you can messenger there too.
And then you can always reach out to Jamie, and then she can shoot you guys my stuff as well. It's probably easiest that way, since she already has all my.
So Frank, if you email me, I can just send you the email or whatever.
Yep.
Awesome. So next week, we'll try to thank you guys for all coming in. And I appreciate all of you for supporting us. And that this was amazing. And I appreciate that people are here. Even if there was nobody here, I still would do this. But the fact that we had so many people coming in tonight on their own, like that wanted to come in, is amazing. So, and we couldn't do this without everybody. Not that we couldn't do this without everybody, but having everybody here makes it that much better. So next week, we're going to talk more about Freud. And if anybody, again, has any information that they want to share with me about it, or if you have anything that has to do with his childhood, if anybody finds anything out about his mom and dad, please, or his sisters, like, send it to us. We really need to get into his family dynamics, but I don't want to have family dynamics day until we have more about his family. I feel like it's too premature, but I can't wait for family dynamic day.
Same.
Oh, I'm dying. All right, you guys, thank you all so much for being here. And Anya, I'll see you on Monday.
Thanks.
I'll probably call you to talk about the man who lives in my head. I'm sure I'll be texting you. All right.
Okay. Bye.
She knows what I'm talking about. That was an inside joke.